Hey guys, welcome to the Bows. Today I'll be talking about UFC 262, headlined by Michael Chandler and Charles Oliveira. And I'm actually going to talk about a few prelim fights that I think are interesting. The first one I want to talk about is Andrea Lee versus Antonina Shevchenko. So Andrea Lee is on a 3-fight losing skid. She's coming off a split decision loss to Roxanne Modafferi. Antonina Shevchenko is coming off a TKO win. She's getting better and she's big for the weight class. That's why I see her coming on top and winning. I don't think Andrea Lee will be able to win a decision over Antonina, and I don't see her putting away Antonina either. I think we could see a grappling heavy game plan from Antonina just to mitigate the offense of Andrea and take a decision win like that by just controlling Andrea the whole time. Andrea hasn't shown that she has the ability to finish Antonina and put her away. Antonina is upwards of a minus 215 favorite last time I checked, but I think it's still a good bet. I actually think it's a lock. The other prelim fight I wanted to talk about is Jack Hermansson versus Edmen Shahbazyan. So Hermansson's coming off a loss to the Vittori. It was a good fight. And Shahbazyan is coming off a TKO loss to Brunson. I think Shahbazyan really showed that he's still green and inexperienced, although very talented and fluid on the feet and throws good combinations and stuff. And Hermansson showed that he's kind of limited on the feet in his last fight, but still has serviceable striking. I think his main deficiency is actually in the boxing. He throws good kicks, but nevertheless, his stand-up is limited. He's got great grappling though, decent ability to get the fight to the ground too. He's also long for the weight class, and he's a big guy. It's a tough one to pick. I don't really know who to pick on this one. Brunson was able to get the fight to the ground, but Hermansson doesn't have the same wrestling pedigree that Brunson has. Hermansson is a little bit of a favorite, which I think makes sense. Shahbazyan struggled with a very experienced fighter in his last outing, and Hermansson is definitely an experienced fighter. Not good enough odds for me to personally bet on. Plus, I think Edmen has a bit of a chance. He's very talented, and he's got a puncher's chance always, especially with his level of striking. He's a good striker. But if I had to pick, I'd go with Hermansson. I'm going to go with the experience. The first fight on the main card is Shane Burgos versus Edson Barboza, and this may be your fight of the night. Barboza, I'd say, is the more technical striker, a little bit more advanced on the feet. I think almost everyone would agree with that. Burgos has a rock chin, and he's got a very solid skill set himself, and he's got good striking, so this is a good matchup. They're both big featherweights, too. They're both about like 5'11", and about a 75-inch reach or so these guys are big guys. This is another tough one to call for me. Barboza is a slight underdog. He's a minus 105 underdog to Shane Burgos' minus 125 favorite. Nearly a pick'em. For the betting man, it's a tough decision to make. I'm probably not betting on it. It's going to be a last-minute decision type of thing for me if I decide to bet on it. And I'm slightly leaning towards Barboza right now if I had to pick. He has a lot of experience with top guys. He looked great against Amir Khani. I mean, so did Burgos when he fought Makwan Amir Khani. But Burgos' striking is not quite as good as Barboza's. And I think Barboza has seen a guy like Shane before. A big, strong guy who's pretty solid everywhere. So I think this is a good matchup. And if I had to pick, I'm going to go with Barboza. Next up is Viviane Araujo versus Katlyn Chookagian. Again, a close betting line, almost even money, but I have a lot of confidence in Viviane coming up with the win. I think she's got a great striking skill set, and she just moves well. I think she moves a little bit better than Katlyn, a little bit more athletic, a little bit more fluid in general. Chookagian's striking is good though, but she doesn't carry that much power. And Viviane carries a decent amount of power. She's knocked people out before in the UFC. Katlyn's knocked people out before, just not in the UFC. So against the best of the best, Katlyn hasn't been able to put people away, but she's still good. But I still like Viviane's chances if the fight stays on the feet the whole time. I'm interested to see how the grappling exchanges go if the fight ever goes there. Chookagian's size and length may cause some difficulty for Viviane, but I still like Viviane coming up with the win in this one. Next up is Tony Ferguson versus Beneil Dariush. I already made a video on this fight. Should be a great fight. another potential fight of the night. I think this fight is the real determinant to see if Tony truly is over the hill. I actually think this is a good stylistic matchup for Tony too. Both have great ground games, both have creative, unorthodox, yet not super technically sound striking. I'm curious to see how Tony's boxing looks after training with Freddie Roach. This could possibly give him an edge in the boxing department. I'm a little concerned about Tony's physical strength though. He got tossed around a bit in his last fight, and that's not something you really saw all that much before his last fight. Regardless, we're probably looking at a bloodbath of a fight, which is always great for the fans. I'm a fan of both guys, but I actually like Tony's chances and the underdog money that comes with it as well. I got in on Tony when he was a plus 150 underdog. The line is a little closer now with Tony as a plus 125 and Beneil is about a minus 140. I still like Tony with these odds. And for the co-main event, we got Leon Edwards versus Nate Diaz. Leon is a considerable favorite. I placed a bet on Leon when he was a minus 350 favorite. Now he's upwards of a minus 440 favorite. I think the ship has sailed on Leon if you wanted to bet on him. Even in the minus 300s like I got, it isn't too good. But I don't see how Leon doesn't win this fight. Leon's stand-up as a whole is better. His wrestling and ground game is very good as well. And he's one of the most well-rounded fighters in the game right now. I think Diaz can submit him if he can get the fight to the ground, but I don't think he can do that. Diaz also has very good clinch work, but I think Leon is too big and too strong for Nate to be able to effectively use his clinch game. Leon looked especially big in his last fight. He seemed to be more heavily muscled than before, and he still moved extremely well. Nate is a great fighter, and I wouldn't completely count him out ever, especially with him being a plus 350 dog. There's money to be made there. But for me, I just don't see how Nate can beat Leon. And for the main event, we got Charles Oliveira versus Michael Chandler for the vacant lightweight strap. Another tough one to call. I guess they're all tough to call on this fight card. I don't have a bet on this fight right now. Michael Chandler was around a plus 200 dog a month or so ago, and that was the line to get in on if you're going to bet on Chandler. Chandler is still a slight underdog now if you want to bet on him. He's a plus 110 underdog to Charles Oliveira's minus 130 favorite. It's still decent betting line for Chandler if you want to bet on Chandler. Just there's a missed opportunity from what it was before. Stylistically, it seems to be in Chandler's favor. He is explosive, powerful, and can really close the distance fast. Charles could submit anyone in the division, I believe, if he can get the fight to the ground. But I think Chandler's wrestling is too good to be taken down by Oliveira. Unfortunately for Charles, it just seems like a bad matchup for him. At least that seems to be the sentiment in the MMA community. I know that John McCarthy and Josh Thompson were saying that it's a bad matchup for Oliveira and that Chandler's going to run through him, but we'll see. But for me, on the other hand, I think Oliveira has underrated striking and he's long and athletic. So is Dan Hooker, and we saw how that fight went with Chandler, right? Chandler knocked him out. But Hooker had to worry about the power and the takedowns. Charles just has to worry about the power. There's no way that Chandler plays that game with Oliveira and takes him down. He could physically do it, right? He could physically take him down, but Oliveira would welcome that, and it's very possible that he'd submit him. So Charles will most likely be able to keep his guard high and not worry about a vital part of Chandler's game, which is being able to use the takedown threat to set up the hands, and that's what he did against Hooker. I think if Oliveira uses his length, he could win the fight. Jabs definitely, and utilizing that front kick that he likes to throw. He used it against Kevin Lee a lot, and it was very effective. I don't think it's as clear-cut Chandler as many people think. Again, Josh Thompson and John McCarthy and some other people were picking Chandler, and they were kind of saying it was a lock pick. They may be right, but it's too tough of a call to make for me to bet on, especially how close the betting line is right now. I probably won't be betting on this one. If you think Chandler, bet now. If you think Oliveira, then wait, because the betting line is probably going to get closer and closer. If I was forced to bet on it, I think I'd pick Chandler, but only because he's the underdog. If Oliveira was the underdog, I'd go with him. A while back, after Charles beat Kevin Lee, I thought to myself, this guy could be the next champion. I then thought if he beats Tony, all right, he's going to be the next champion. And then he demolished Tony. So actually, I think I have to stand by my original sentiment and side with Oliveira. Still, probably not betting on it, but if I had to, that's what I'd bet on. Alright guys, that's all I got for you today. Leave a like, subscribe, and let me know what you think about these fights in the upcoming pay-per-view. Till next time, peace.